I think historically it has been typical to think of Malta as a high-volume funds jurisdiction, a place where funds can be set up quickly and in a cost-effective way. And that is, of course, perfectly true. However, what we're seeing with more recent developments in the financial regulatory sphere and generally speaking in the funds industry is that Malta is increasingly being used as a hub for the fund management businesses themselves. That is not just a hub for the fund vehicles, but also a hub for the managers, the people, the brains, the drivers of this industry. And I think we can broadly categorize these growth drivers into two. Those which are of broad applicability, those which apply, that is, to the financial services sector as a whole, not just to fund and fund managers, and those which are, let us say, sector specific, those which apply exclusively or particularly to the fund management sector. Now, looking at or focusing on the drivers which are of general applicability, I think first and foremost, the fact that we are an English-speaking nation with an English-speaking and very well-educated workforce, I think that is extremely important, combined with the fact that Maltese legislation is available both in Maltese as well as in English, and in certain key financial sectors, the version which is binding is actually the English language version. So one does not need to worry that there is some clause in some funny language which he does not understand, which is going to trump some well-set-up plan. It is the English language version which binds in certain key sectors. And I think that is very important. Apart from that, Malta has a very efficient cost as well as fiscal base. And whilst retaining certain efficiencies, Malta is also extremely compliant with all international standards in this area. Apart from that, and I think perhaps most importantly, I think the key driver for the growth of the financial services sector in Malta as a whole has been the approach, which has been highly praised, of the Malta Financial Services Authority, our single regulator for financial services. I think what makes MFSA unique is its combination of serious regulation, of firmness in the enforcement of regulation, together with a flexible attitude and an approachable style. So what do I mean? I mean, at the end of the day, in the financial services sector, we have harmonized rule books. There's a harmonized level of regulation across the board in the European Union, and everyone abides largely by the same rules. So where Malta distinguishes itself is not by implementing rules which are different to those of other jurisdictions, but more than anything, it is by implementing those rules in a, let's say, in an approachable and flexible way. If one needs to speak to a regulator, in many jurisdictions, this is something which is very difficult, and it is practically unheard of to be able to meet face-to-face and have a human-to-human discussion with the regulator. This is not the case in Malta. In Malta, if the urgency so necessitates, it is perfectly feasible to organize a face-to-face meeting within 24 hours of a request, and it would be a meeting with someone who is knowledgeable of the industry, someone who is not just a tick box type of regulator, but someone who understands the industry and who has sufficient levels of seniority to actually participate in the decision-making process. And I think that has been found to be very refreshing by the industry at large. It has been a key, unique selling point for Malta. Malta is, as we said, an EU member state. And what that means is that Malta abides by all of the relevant European Union level directives, including, very important for the fund sector, the Alternative Investment Fund Managers Directive, AFMD. Now, I think it's safe to say that when AFMD first came on the radar, many people were alarmed. Many people felt that it would disrupt practices, that it would be a big challenge for the industry, and certainly it has been a challenge. However, I think what steadily dawned upon the industry in Malta is that, first of all, we already had a very sophisticated, a very well-developed rulebook. So in a way, there weren't that many new lessons to be learned. Secondly, what has evolved is that AFMD has actually helped Malta to develop into this fund management hub, because of the passporting provisions. So a fund manager which chooses Malta as its home gains, through the application of the passporting rules implemented as part of AFMD, the right to provide its services, its fund management services, throughout the European Union, and also the right to passport its funds, the right to market its funds, broadly speaking, throughout the European Union. And that is a very powerful argument in favor of Malta as a domicile when combined with the other general attractions of the jurisdiction, let's say. Apart from that, there are a number of subtleties in the Maltese financial regulatory ecosystem, which I think are very important over here, particularly the fact that Malta has chosen not to implement Guideline 18 of the ESMA guidelines on remuneration provisions, which means essentially that your REM code provisions stop with Malta and there is no look-through with respect to delegates. Although the MFSA is an approachable regulator, which is open to innovative ideas, I must stress that the regulatory process is strict and that the highest standards of probity are expected from all applicants. The focus of the application process, and this is not the totality of the application process, but the focus of the application process is on the individuals and their fitness and properness for the business concerned. Therefore, the individuals have to show that they have the appropriate levels of competence, the appropriate levels of integrity, and also that they have the solvency, the financial wherewithal in order to operate this type of business.